Hi everyone, welcome back to a new episode from DGMZ diwan-e-ghalib-meri-zubaani. This episode is in continuation of our DGMZ Miniseries Layla-e-Majnun. If you have accessed the previous two episodes that we have posted, you would know that currently we are running a mini-series at DGMZ, first of its kind, dedicated to the immortal love story of Layla Majnun. As part of the series, we are taking the time and the resources that have eluded us in the past to get into this story in depth. As part of this mini-series, we are narrating the story from a book titled Layla-e-Majnun by Nizami and published by Suluk Press. The details of this book and the link, if you want to own a copy, will be available to you in the description section of this episode. So if you were with me in the previous episode, we did a very detailed introduction to the Layla Majnun story. We went into the history of it. We went into the evolution of that old Arab folktale to the masterpiece created by Nizami Ganjavi. And we also started our narration from the book. We covered both the prefaces because, like I said in the previous episode, the prefaces are beautifully crafted. And those prefaces prepped us as readers to get into the story with a great understanding as to how the story has come to be and the undisputable contribution Nizami Ganjavi's masterpiece has to the way this story is perceived till date. So today we are going to get into the actual chapters of the book and kickstart the story. So I hope you have been looking forward to this. I certainly have. We will cover the first 3 chapters today, and then if time permits, we will do a brief personal impression in the spirit of the DGMZ podcast. As you would know, we do personal impressions of the classics we cover. So we will do that, and hopefully all of us will get caught up in the story once this episode is over, and look forward to the next episode. So what I'm going to do now is start the narration of the story. Just for your awareness, I will, for your benefit, say start of narration before starting the narration. I will also mention start of quote and end of quote for anything which has been written as a quote in the book. And once I'm done with the narration, I will let you know by saying end of narration, so that you know what I'm saying right now is part of the narration, and everything beyond end of narration would be the personal impression. Okay, so let's get into it. Start of narration. The story of Layla and Majnun. Chapter 1. Once there lived among the Bedouin in Arabia a great lord, a Sayyid who ruled over the Banu Amir. No other country flourished like his, and Zephyr carried the sweet scent of his glory to the farthest horizons. Success and merit made him a sultan of the Arabs, and his wealth equaled that of Korah. He had a kind heart for the poor, and for them his purse was always open. To strangers, he was a generous host, and in all his enterprises, he succeeded, as if good luck were part of him, as the stone is part of the fruit, or so it appeared to be. Yet, though respected like a caliph, to himself he seemed like a candle, slowly consuming itself without ever spreading quite enough light. The heart of this great man was eaten by one secret sorrow. He who otherwise possessed everything he desired had no son. He had remained childless. What did glory, power, and wealth mean to him if one day they would slip from his hands without an heir to receive them? Was the corn fated to wither? Did the branch have to die? If the cypress tree fell, where would the pheasant build his nest? Where would he find happiness? Where shade and refuge? He only is truly alive who, in his son's memory, survives his own death. Thus the nobleman brooded, and the older he grew, the greater became his desire. Yet, for many years, his alms and prayers were in vain. The full moon, which he so eagerly awaited, never rose in his sky, and the jasmine seed, which he sowed, would not germinate. Still the Sayyid was not content to bow to his fate. For the sake of one wish yet unfulfilled, he thought but little of everything else that heaven had granted him. That is how humans are made. If prayers remain unanswered, do we ever reflect that it may be for our own good? We feel sure that we know our needs, yet the future is veiled from our eyes. The thread of our fate ends outside the visible world. And what today we mistake for a padlock, keeping us out, we may tomorrow find to be the key that lets us in. Much, of course, can happen in the meantime. Our hero desired the jewel he did not possess. As the oyster nourishes its pearl, so he prayed and clamored, until in the end, God fulfilled his wish. He was given a boy who looked like the smile of a pomegranate, like a rose whose petals have opened overnight, like a diamond which transforms the darkness of the world into sheer light. Delighted, the happy father opened wide the door of his treasury. Everyone was to share his happiness, and the great event was celebrated with shouts of joy and words of blessing. The child was committed to the care of a nurse, so that under her watchful eye he should grow big and strong. So he did, and every drop of milk he drank was turned in his body into a token of faithfulness. Every bite he ate became in his heart a morsel of tenderness. Each line of indigo drawn on his face to protect him against the evil eye worked magic in his soul. All this, however, remained a secret, hidden from every eye. 2 weeks after his birth, the child already looked like the moon after 14 days, and his parents gave him the name of Qays. A year went by, and the boy's beauty grew to perfection. As a ray of light penetrates the water, so the jewel of love shone through the veil of his body. Playful and joyful, he grew year by year, a carefully protected flower in the happy garden of childhood. When he was 7 years old, the violet-colored down of his first beard began to shimmer on his tulip cheeks. And when he had reached his first decennium, people told the story of his beauty like a fairy tale. Whoever saw him, if only from afar, called upon heaven to bless him. The story of Layla and Majnun, Chapter 2. Now the father sent the boy to school. He entrusted him to a learned man, to whom distinguished Arabs took their children, so that he should teach them everything of use in this world. Instead of playing, they were now to study in earnest, and if they went a little in fear of the strict master, there was no harm in that. Soon, Qays was one of the best pupils. He easily mastered the arts of reading and writing. And when he talked, it was as if his tongue was scattering pearls. It was a delight to listen to him. But then something happened which no one had foreseen. Listen. Among his fellow pupils were girls. Just like the boys, they came from noble families of various tribes. One day, a beautiful little girl joined the group. A jewel such as one sees but seldom. She was as slender as a cypress tree. Her eyes, like those of a gazelle, could have pierced 1,000 hearts with a single unexpected glance. Yes, with one flicker of her eyelashes, she could have slain a whole world. To look at, she was like an Arabian moon. Yet when it came to stealing hearts, she was a Persian page. Under the dark shadow of her hair, her face was a lamp, or rather a torch, with ravens weaving their wings around it. And who would have thought that such overwhelming sweetness could flow from so small a mouth? Is it possible then to break whole armies with one small grain of sugar? She really did not need rouge. Even the milk she drank turned into the color of roses on her lips and cheeks. And she was equipped with lustrous eyes and a mole on her cheek even when her mother brought her into the world. The name of this miracle of creation was Layla. Does not Lail mean night in Arabic? And dark as the night was the color of her hair. Whose heart would not have filled with longing at the sight of this girl? But young Qays felt even more. He was drowned in the ocean of love before he knew that there was such a thing. He had already given his heart to Layla before he understood what he was giving away. And Layla, she fared no better. A fire had been lit in both, and each reflected the other. What could they have done against it? A bearer had come and filled their cups to the brim. They drank what he poured out for them. They were children and did not realize what they were drinking. No wonder they became drunk. He who is drunk for the first time becomes deeply drunk indeed. And heavily falls he who has never had a fall before. Together they had inhaled the scent of a flower, its name unknown, its magic great. As yet no one had noticed, so they went on drinking their wine and enjoying the sweet scent. They drank by day and dreamed by night. And the more they drank, the deeper they became immersed in each other. Their eyes became blind and their ears deaf to the school and the world. They had found each other. Start of quotes. While all their friends were toiling at their books, these two were trying other ways of learning. Reading love's grammar in each other's looks. Glances to them were marks which they were earning. Their minds were freed from spelling by love's spell. They practiced writing notes full of caress. The others learned to count while they could tell that nothing ever counts but tenderness. End of quotes. The story of Layla and Majnun, Chapter 3. How happy this first flowering of love for Qays and Layla. But can such happiness last? Was not a shadow already falling over their radiance, even if the children did not notice it? What did they know about the ways and the laws of this world? They did not count hours or days until suddenly disaster struck. Just as Joseph came out of his pit, so the sun, a golden orange, ascends every morning from the hem of the horizon, like a precious toy in the sky. Yet every evening, exhausted and worn out by the day's labor, it sinks back towards the west into the deep well. So Layla also shone forth in her morning. Every day she grew more beautiful. Not only Qays, also his companions at school became aware of it. Openly or secretly, they began to stare at her. And if they caught only a glimpse of her chin, shaped like a lemon with little dimples, they felt like ripe pomegranates full of juice ready to burst with desire. Was not Qays bound to notice? Certainly. And for the first time, a bitter taste mingled with the sweet scent of his love. He was no longer alone with Layla. A small crack appeared in his blind happiness. He had a foreboding of what was to come, but it was too late. While the lovers turned their backs on the world, drinking the wine of oblivion and enjoying their paradise, the eyes of the world turned towards them. Did the others understand what they saw? Could they decipher the secret code of signs and glances? How could they fail? But they understood in their own petty way, driven by curiosity, spurred by jealousy, and spite and pleasure over other people's discomfiture. And how easy the lovers made it for their enemies to set their traps. What, you have not heard? They sneered. And from mouth to mouth it was whispered, from ear to ear, from tent to tent. Start of quotes. When wagging tongues abused what was so fair, their eyes and lips could now no longer shield. Caught by the gossip in the square, the tender secret which each glance revealed. End of quotes. Hard is the awakening for people so deeply intoxicated by their dreams. Now Layla and Qays began to notice the pointing fingers, to hear the reproaches, the derision, the whisperings behind their backs, to see strangers' eyes watching, spying, following. Suddenly they realized their blindness. Why had they never noticed the hunters and their weapons? Now they tried to mend the torn veil, to protect their naked love from the world, to hide their longing for each other, to tame their glances, and to seal their lips. They sought to be cautious and patient, but what use? Like the musk deer, love, betrayed by its scent, cannot hide. Like the sun, it penetrates clouds. Caution and patience are no chains for a lover, already chained 1,000-fold by the tresses of his beloved. Qays' soul was a mirror for Layla's beauty. How could he remain silent about all he saw in it? How could he avert his glance from the fountainhead of his life? He tried, but his heart was no longer at one with his reason. If reason asked him to avoid his love, his heart felt ill with longing for her. Away from her, Qays found no peace, yet searching her out was to imperil both. Was there a way out? The youth could not see any, and his heart suddenly lost its balance. Like a beast of burden, which stumbles and falls when the load on its back suddenly breaks loose. But those who never stumble nor fall looked on and said, "He is a Majnun, a madman." Soon everyone knew, and the more people saw and heard of him, the madder he appeared. But he did nothing to pacify those who reproached him. On the contrary, he walked among them, praising Layla's beauty, like a sleepwalker recalling a dream in the middle of the day. Who would do such a thing? Disaster swiftly took its course. Too many hounds were chasing the stag, tongues hanging from their ravening mouths, barking and growling, panting and jeering. It became too much for Layla's people. Was not the girl's honor also that of her family? More, that of her whole tribe? Was it right that this mad fellow, this Qays of the Banu Amir, should play around with her until her name became a laughing stock? From now on, Layla's parents kept their daughter at home. They guarded her carefully and saw to it that Qays had no chance to meet her. They kept the new moon hidden from the fool. The way to the pastures was now blocked for the young gazelle. What could Layla do against it? She had to hide the sadness of her heart. Only when she was alone did she drop the curtain and shed lonely tears. End of narration. So that was intense, and we are just in the first three. We just covered the first 3 chapters of this story. The first chapter is titled How the Story Began. The second chapter is titled Qays and Layla Meet. And the third chapter is titled The Lovers Are Separated. Just to remind you, I was reading from the book titled The Story of Layla and Majnun by Nizami, translation and preface by Rudolph Gelpke, with Peer Zia Inayat Khan and Omid Safi. So it is very interesting. These first 3 chapters were very interesting, and here were a few things that kind of came to mind as we were reading through the chapters. So let's discuss the chapters a little, briefly. Just the take-home message, if you may. What will we take back from these chapters? So the first chapter, how the story began, right? It was very interesting how we got an insight into Majnun's background. Because usually Majnun, unlike Layla, who is many a times either painted or written about with a lot of things surrounding her, family, tribe, friends, and then husband, and lot of things around her. Majnun usually is talked about in a very isolated canvas. He's part of a very isolated canvas where he is the solitary thing, right? He is the solitary artifact. The rest is all empty. And that is his power, probably. But here in this first chapter, one does get that rare opportunity to understand that Majnun himself, though the typical picture of Majnun is somebody in the desert, underfed, underclothed, tattered, in rags, Majnun actually came from a very well-to-do family. His father was very well-to-do, very well-respected, very generous, very kind. And it is, if Layla was from a wealthy, reputed family, Majnun was from an equally, if not more, wealthy and reputed family, for sure. They might have been different tribes, but there was nothing lacking in Majnun's family or their status in the society. The other thing in the first chapter that kind of struck me was how beautifully Nizami has captured this human nature of wanting what you want. Majnun's father does not give up. Majnun's father does not give up. He has a wish for a child. And of course, granted, this is a very precious wish. Majnun's father was not the first one to wish for this. He is not the last. If you don't have one and you want one, It is not a wish you would let go of easily. But Nizami so beautifully takes that as an opportunity to bring home the point that sometimes as humans, we really do not know what we need. We really do not know what we need. We would like to believe that, and we do believe that and go after things, but we might not know what we need. And the father just kept praying and almost twisting destiny and fate's arm into giving him what he wanted. And then destiny and fate finally yielded. God finally granted the father his wish. So one wonders, is this the point when the destiny of Majnun's life, which is going to be riddled with trials and tribulations, was that destiny sealed at this point in time? Had the father not wished and prayed and twisted destiny and fate's arm into granting this wish, could Majnu have been spared, right? Though that's a very short-sighted approach, I totally agree. But the thought did come to mind, right? Because Majnu's destiny was much huge than just not just having a nice cozy life like everybody. Majnu was destined for something very big, and usually such big things come with their set of trials and tribulations. So that justification holds water for sure, but this makes you wonder that, had the father not wished, maybe Majnu could have been spared all the pain he went through. And the way Nizami articulates it, and of course credit goes to Rudolph Gelpke for translating it so beautifully, right? To keep the essence intact. So when Nizami says, that is how humans are made. That is how humans are made. If prayers remain unanswered, do we ever reflect that it may be for our good? What today we mistake for a padlock, keeping us out, we may tomorrow find to be the key that lets us in. And the other thing in the first chapter, this is the first chapter, it is very powerful. The other thing that came across was, so again, there is a lot of description available for Layla's beauty. Everybody talks about her beauty, including Majnu. But this first chapter focuses on Majnu's beauty, which is very heartwarming. Because again, the typical picture of Majnu would not come across as beautiful, physically at least, right? Tattered, wearing rags, underfed, emaciated, starved, crazy, right? Unkept. But in this chapter, you realize what a beautiful child he was. What a beautiful child he was. Nizami puts in the time and effort to capture the beauty of Majnu. This is how he started. And of course, we know how he ended. But this is how he started, and painstakingly Nizami, bit by bit, draws that picture. And Majnu's beauty, the way Nizami captures it, yes, he captures the physical aspects of it, his cheeks and his lips, and how beautiful his skin was and everything. But Nizami also talks about the soul beauty that Majnu possessed at that tender, small age. Indeed, Majnu was born and destined to be this like we read in the preface in the previous episode, right? He was destined to be this rubric of a lover. All the impressions of various type of lovers come and kind of just merge into this one single picture, which is that of Majnun. So Nizami says, like a diamond, like a diamond which transforms the darkness of the world into sheer light. Not a diamond that is just shining for its own glory, but a diamond that will shine so that it can convert the darkness around it into sheer light. And then Nizami also says, as a ray of light penetrates the water, so the jewel of love shone through the veil of his body. So the love he carried inside him, his body could not hide it. That love shone out of his body. So I just love the way the soulful beauty of Majnu is captured by Nizami. And of course, one thing that comes through and cannot be overlooked or ignored is the fact how precious a child he was, right? How precious a child he was. The parents had prayed, and Nizami says till their old age. He was a miracle baby. What we call in today's parlance, a precious child, a miracle baby. So many prayers, so many wishes, so many dreams had gone into the fulfilling of this desire of his parents, and they were finally granted this prayer. They were finally, their prayer was answered, and to see a child as precious as this, to see the biggest miracle of their life deteriorate in front of their eyes and go through a never-ending string of trials and tribulations. How heartbreaking for the parents. How heartbreaking it must have been. Nizami covers in the consecutive chapters, he will cover the pain and the anguish of the parents, especially the father, who did not give up on his dream, who did not give up on his desire, who did not give up on his prayer to have a son. Especially the heartbreak that father goes through when he sees Majnu transform from Qays to Majnu and then give up everything, including them, to go and live his entire life in wilderness is a heartbreaking experience for the parents. वही बात फिर से आ गई ना, what today we mistake for a padlock keeping us out, we may tomorrow find to be the key that lets us in. वो if you have read that story, Monkey's Paw, so that story is something like this. Of course, it's a totally different genre than Layla-e-Majnun, but it has a quote in it, which is, to show that fate ruled people's lives and that those who interfered with it did so to their sorrow. So the story, it's a very interesting story. If you haven't read it, you should give it a shot. Monkey's Paw, but this quote really is so similar to what we are reading in the Layla-e-Majnun story, that those who interfere with fate do so at their own risk, at their own peril, at their own sorrow. Otherwise, fate usually, if allowed to play out, will play out for your betterment. Will play out for your betterment. Moving on to the second chapter, right? When Qays and Layla meet in the school. So, of course, what is the word I'm looking for? The biggest event of their lives happens in the second chapter. They meet. Rest is history. Like we would say, rest is history. They meet. And unlike usual meetings, which probably will take multiple, you would have to do multiple meetings to get to this close, to have this close an acquaintance with someone. Not so in Layla and Majnun's case. One meeting, and their fate was sealed. They knew this is my destiny. Now, how it will play out, time will tell. But that inner knowledge that I have met my destiny occurs in the first meeting itself. Now, in this chapter, there was something which struck me when Nizami says, when he talked, it was as if his tongue was scattering pearls. This is before he met Layla. Qays had not seen Layla yet. Nizami is just describing his performance, probably as a pupil in the school. And he says that he mastered all the arts, and when Majnu talked, it was as if his tongue scattered pearls. And one imagines, sure, Layla made Majnu a ashik, but the poetic talent in Majnu was pretty evident even before he met Layla. He was very good with art, literature, talking, writing. All that caliber was in him even before he met Layla. But Layla and his love for Layla just transformed all this and transcended it to a totally different level, right? But the caliber was very evident. And then, of course, the second chapter is dedicated to Layla's beauty. Nizami, like every other poet who writes about Layla Majnun's story, goes into great detail about her beauty. And it almost seems as if Nizami is saying, here is the face that launched 1,000 ships. That quote is for Helen of Troy, but that comes to mind that, so this is the face, right? This is the face that will launch 1,000 ships to come. And also Nizami, so in the previous episode, if you were with me, when we were going through the introduction, we went into the details of how the Layla Majnun story was originally an Arabic folktale. And Nizami was the one who translated it into Persian and did the Herculean task of collating all the Arabic existing manuscripts and details and written records and stories and folklore, and then made a skeletal story out of it and build his Persian masterpiece on top of that skeletal story. So when Nizami says, to look at, she was like an Arabian moon. To look at, she was like an Arabian moon, yet when it came to stealing hearts, she was a Persian page. How he beautifully brings that Arabic and Persian influence together, right? So one aspect of Layla described in a very original Arabic style, Arabic moon, right? Arabian moon. And then one part of her described in a very original Persian style, stealing hearts as a Persian page. Stroke of a genius, for sure. And then when he says, is it possible? Is it possible then to break whole armies with one small grain of sugar? He's describing Layla's speech, which is so sweet. And it almost seems as if Nizami back then is in his own way predicting the destiny of this masterpiece. The way this masterpiece will go on to transcend love and lovers both to a height which will be then forever out of reach, will be out of reach for things like jealousy, anger, war, conflict, or whatever worldly phenomena keep love and lovers apart, right? It's almost as if Nizami is saying that, yeah, I can already see the potential of the story, what it can do. One single grain of a story like Layla-e-Majnun can sweeten the hearts of a huge sea of people whose hearts are filled with bitter emotions like jealousy and hatred and anger and conflict and war. Almost seems like that. And the last thing that really caught my attention was, so in the second chapter, Qays and Layla are not only meeting, but they are falling in love. Like I said, this was not a couple that needed more than one meeting. They saw each other, they identified each other as soulmates, and they fell in love with each other instantly. So they meet and they fall in love. And that is a very, in my humble opinion, detailing the falling in love of two people when they are school kids is not a topic everybody can write about. Let's just say that, right? It's a tricky topic. But again, Nizami's genius, right? The way he describes the falling in love of these two people when they are just mere school kids. He says, he who is drunk for the first time becomes deeply drunk indeed, and heavily falls he who has never had a fall before. Beautifully captured and detailed the falling in love of these two people while they are in school. Very well done. Again, a stroke of a genius. And then moving on to the third chapter. So, the third chapter is titled The Lovers Are Separated. In a book, right, in a book with 54 chapters detailing the story, to have the third chapter titled as Lovers Are Separated is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. It just tells you that the togetherness ended very early. The separation started very early. And that is a double whammy. That is a double whammy. It is double the curse. It is double the burden for the lovers. तीसरे चैप्टर में ही the lovers are separated. अब इसके बाद तो सब कहानी अकेले अकेले है. अकेले अकेले है. ऐसा लगता है कि मिलने की मोहलत सिर्फ इसलिए दी थी कि एक दूसरे को देख पाएं, जान पाएं, प्यार हो जाए. उसके बाद की पूरी कहानी किस्मत ने अलग ही लिखी थी. And of course we will see how that story unfolds. Just very, very heartbreaking. And इस chapter में Nizami comes again and again at us with heart-wrenching questions. ऐसे ऐसे सवाल पूछे हैं, ऐसे ऐसे उनको आर्टिकुलेट किया है कि इंसान सोचने पे मजबूर हो जाता है ना. सो व्हेन निज़ामी सेज, बट कैन सच हैप्पीनेस लास्ट, राइट. इतनी सारी जब खुशी मिल जाती है तो विल इट लास्ट, विल इट लास्ट. और द फैक्ट दैट इतनी खुशी मिल गई है वो अपने आप में एक जिसे कहते हैं ना ग्रहण लगा देती है खुशी को. खुशी ही खुशी को ग्रहण लगा देती है. एंड देन ही गोज ऑन टू से, अ स्मॉल क्रैक अपीयर्ड इन हिज ब्लाइंड हैप्पीनेस, ही हैड अ फोरबोर्डिंग ऑफ वॉट वॉज टू कम, बट इट वॉज टू लेट. सो ना खुशी अपने इख्तियार में थी और ना आने वाले गम अपने इख्तियार में थे, है ना. द डेस्टिनी देयर फेट वॉज प्लेइंग आउट. ना तो उनको इसमें कोई चॉइस मिली कि इससे प्यार करूं या ना करूं, कोई चॉइस नहीं मिली. देखा, प्यार हो गया, दैट्स हाउ इट वॉज मेंट टू बी. और ना फिर कब इस चीज़ में कोई चॉइस मिली कि इससे जुदा हूँ या ना हूँ. जुदाई हो गई एंड दैट वॉज मेंट टू बी. एंड दोनों लाइफ्स सेपरेशन में बियॉन्ड दिस चैप्टर बीतेंगी. Another thing which Nizami very beautifully captures in chapter 3 is this nature of love. तो इश्क पे तो भाई सब कुछ ना कुछ कहते हैं, सबका अपना अपना टेक है और होना भी चाहिए. बट निज़ामी इस चैप्टर में इश्क का वो पहलू बयां कर रहे हैं जो कि किसी का कायल नहीं है, जिसको कोई बांध नहीं सकता, जिसको कोई रोक नहीं सकता, जिसको कोई टोक नहीं सकता. राइट. द अनटेमेबल, अनचेनेबल, अनटेदर्ड नेचर ऑफ लव. जब वो निज़ामी ये लिखते हैं, लाइक द मस्क डियर, लव बिट्रेड बाय इट्स सेंट कैनॉट हाइड, लाइक द सन इट पेनेट्रेट्स क्लाउड्स. वहाँ पे भी बोलते हैं ना कि द डायमंड ऑफ लव शोन फ्रॉम द वेल ऑफ हिज बॉडी. सो ये Majnu, before he met Layla, the potential of love he had in him, he could not hide. And then after he meets Layla and falls in love with Layla, the love for Layla he cannot hide. Both lovers cannot hide it. They cannot hide it. And that is the attribute of true love. आप छुपा नहीं सकते हैं उसको, वो कहीं ना कहीं दिखी जाएगा, कहीं ना कहीं दिखी जाएगा. एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स ये तो हम लोगों ने उर्दू पोइट्री में भी हम लोग काफ़ी बार इस कॉन्सेप्ट से हमारा वी फाइंड दिस कॉन्सेप्ट इन लॉट ऑफ उर्दू पोइट्री कि ये जो आशिक का एक बहुत बड़ी कश्मकश रहती है. राइट. कि खुल के इजहार करें अपने प्यार का, खुलेआम, या ना करें. एंड दोनों तरफ उसको तकलीफ ही है ना. सो निज़ामी जो है ये जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है लवर का, इसको काफ़ी अच्छी तरह कैप्चर करते हैं. सो ही राइट्स, अवे फ्रॉम हर कैस फाउंड नो पीस, येट सर्चिंग हर आउट वॉज टू इम्पेरल बोथ. तो उससे अलग जब रहता था कैस लैला से तो बेचैन, पर अगर उसको ढूंढने निकले तो बदनामी उसकी. एंड वो कश्मकश, वो जद्दोजहद हर आशिक की किसी न किसी फॉर्म में रहती है. बट द सेंटर पीस ऑफ द थर्ड चैप्टर, राइट, द सेंटर पीस ऑफ द थर्ड चैप्टर इज what I call as making of Majnu. Nizami details the transformation of Qays to Majnu in an unforgettable way that will stay with the reader. So this is what Nizami writes. And his heart suddenly lost its balance, like a beast of burden which stumbles and falls when the load on its back suddenly breaks loose. जब आप ये पढ़ते हो, सो ऑफ कोर्स जो पिक्चराइजेशन है वो या तो किसी हॉर्स का है या किसी डोंकी या म्यूल का है, जिसके ऊपर भतेरों भार रखा हुआ है ना, भतेरों भार रखा हुआ है. दैट एनिमल इज बर्डन्ड under what all he is carrying on its back, or it is carrying on its back. And वैसे ही वो नहीं चल पा रहा है, खड़ा हो पा रहा है, and for some reason or the other उसके ऊपर जो भार रखा है वो जैसे बंधा हुआ रखा हुआ था, किसी न किसी रीज़न के लिए खुल जाता है एंड इधर उधर बिखर जाता है. एंड कैसे जब वो भार उसके ऊपर बिखरता है, दैट इज़ द लास्ट स्ट्रॉ दैट ब्रेक्स द कैमल्स बैक. द एनिमल जस्ट क्रम्बल्स अंडरनीथ द होल थिंग. एज अ रीडर आपका बिल्कुल ऐसा लगता है कि पकड़ लो उसको. You almost reach out to catch Cass as he stumbles down. And then you realize that he slowly rises up, transformed as Majnun. This moment is where it will start. His legacy, his destiny, his trial. This is what he will be remembered as forever and ever. There is no going back to Qays. यहाँ से अब आगे सिर्फ मजनू है. एंड निज़ामी ने बहुत प्यारी तरह ये ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन दिखाया है कि भार से चल रहा था कैस, चल रहा था, भार की अति हो गई, कैस उसके नीचे टूट गया और उसके बाद जो उभरा वो मजनू था. कैस इज ओवर. दिस इज़ वेयर द ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हैपन्स. आसी उल्दानी का ये शेर जहन में आ रहा है. मुरतब कर गया एक इश्क का कानून दुनिया में. मुरतब कर गया एक इश्क का कानून दुनिया में, वो दीवाने हैं जो मजनू को दीवाना बताते हैं. एक लेगेसी है, कानून, एक लॉ है जो मजनू दुनिया को दे गया है. एक लेगेसी, एक लॉ. इफ यू हैव टू लव, this is the way you do it. This is the benchmark against which you will be assessed. This is, वो जैसे होते हैं ना कोड. कोड दे गया है दुनिया को प्यार करने का. मुरतब कर गया एक इश्क का कानून दुनिया में, वो दीवाने हैं जो मजनू को दीवाना बताते हैं. एंड देन अहमद फराज का ये शेर. वो कैस अब जिसे मजनू पुकारते हैं फराज. वो कैस अब जिसे मजनू पुकारते हैं फराज, तेरी तरह कोई दीवाना घर से निकला था. हार्ट ब्रेकिंग, राइट. शेर से साफ पता चलता है कि वही जैसे मैं बोल रही थी कि ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन जो मजनू का है, जब घर से निकला था तब तो जिसे कहते हैं ना मिरेकल बेबी, प्रेशियस चाइल्ड, soulful beauty, artist, talented, scattering pearls when he speaks, right? Cheeks like pomegranates, indigo that protected his soul from everything evil. माँ बाप ने कितने हफ्तों, कितने महीनों, कितने सालों तक तो घर में ही रखा कि किसी की नज़र ना लगे. बताया ही नहीं, बाहर ही नहीं निकाला, पढ़ने के लिए बाहर निकाला. एंड दैट्स इट. उसके बाद वो घर कभी वापस आया ही नहीं. इतना प्रेशियस, इतना मेरिकल बेबी. एंड वो क्या सब जिसे मजनू पुकारते हैं फराज, तेरी तरह कोई दीवाना घर से निकला था. एकदम इनोसेंट, राइट. टोटली क्लूलेस अबाउट व्हाट डेस्टिनी एंड फेट हैज़ इन स्टोर. अपने घर से पूरे साजो सामान के साथ, जस्ट लाइक any precious, beautiful, intelligent, miracle child, right? Ventured out of the house and then, yeah, rest is history. Met Layla and rest is history. ओके, अहमद फराज के उस शेर के साथ we will complete the impression for the third chapter. So today we completed the first 3 chapters. I hope you enjoyed the narration. I also hope you enjoyed the impressions. This is exactly what we wanted to do through the DGMZ Miniseries. Be with our viewers and allow ourselves to spend dedicated time and focus on this beautiful story. In the next episode, we will pick up the story from chapter 4. As always, if you enjoyed listening to the episode, humble request, please click like, share with us your feedback, give us your comments. If you know somebody who would enjoy this story, request you to share it through your social media, be it your own YouTube channel, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. And as always, for the new viewers, our strong recommendation to go through the DGMZ introduction episode, because that will give you a good insight into the motivation and inspiration behind this podcast. What are we trying to do here? Also, for your awareness, the podcast currently has 2 playlists. One playlist is dedicated to the diwan-e-ghalib Ghazal episodes, and the other playlist is bonus episodes. Our bonus episodes are still focused on Urdu poetry, on Mirza Ghalib, and also on the events we do at DGMZ. The entire Layla-e-Majnun mini-series is under the bonus playlist. You will not find it under the Ghalib playlist. So if you want to access the last 2 episodes of Layla-e-Majnun mini-series, then check out the bonus playlist. Well, that's all I had for this episode. Let me send a lot of love and light to all you dear viewers, and thanks for watching.